Tell us exactly what the hell you were just about to tell us.
The Jesuits had a line, which was, give me a child for the first 7 years and I'll show you the man.
Yeah, for sure.
Because that will create it, right? Whatever that programming is in that, you own that person, right? I mean, you really, it sounds terrible to say own, but you're capable of, in that study, of predicting what their behaviors will be.
It's crazy when you've been through hypnotherapy. You said you did it.
Done a bunch of it.
Right? How they could dig into you and you things surface that you were like, man, I really didn't remember that.
Yeah.
And how that,
if you're lucky, that's the goal. That's where you're going.
That's what you're trying to dig. If they're good enough to get that information back out and dig it out, that could solve a lot of issues.
Well, I'm a big proponent of it. That's, I mean, maybe here's your segue to where one of the places you wanted to go, but that's where plant medicines come in on that journey as well too, right? About, I was getting into nootropics, what you were talking about earlier, but you certainly don't have to, but it's a vehicle to do that, right? I think meditation, hypnosis, these different things that allow us to kind of, to me, psychedelics, things like ayahuasca.
Where'd you do that? Here or?
Yeah, I did it in Florida.
No, there's some people that go up to
no, the way he said it was
Bolivia,
Costa Rica. Well, Peru is really
Peru.
where so you can go to Peru, and that used to be almost the only way you could do it. There's some really interesting places that have started popping up. It's illegal unless it's in a religious ceremony. So that's kind of the conduit.
And that's like a retreat. That's like a 7-day.
A lot of them. Yeah. So in Peru, you used to have to go down. So what it is this is fascinating to me, is that there's two plants that the active ingredient that kind of gives you this experience. It's called DMT, dimethyltryptophan, right? And so DMT, and we actually secrete it in our body from our pineal gland, right? The third eye, right? You know, the pineal gland. It's in plants, it's in all these kinds of things, but it's not, and so when you get it in large amounts, it's very psychoactive. Very psychoactive. So in Peru, these shaman, for going back many generations, they found this one plant that's high in this DMT. The thing is that the DMT by itself cannot pass through, right, to the blood-brain barrier to make this happen. But what they found is there's another like vine that is, and the irony is it's grown like 1,000 miles away. And what they found is when they take these two plant materials and they boil them and they make them into this drink, right, if you will, the one, it actually allows it, it's called an MAOI, right? People take those monoxamine inhibitor, right? And so it allows it to pass through and give you this euphoric experience, right? This psychedelic experience.
So the other one is like a carrier?
Yeah, a facilitator. How about that, right? So it opens the door so this one can come through, right? That's kind of, I would say that's a good, kind of way to think about it. But how do these shaman find these two plants 1,000 miles apart and know to kind of put those together? You know what I mean? And do that. So anyway, so it used to be Peru and that, and still is, obviously. That's kind of where it's indigenous. Costa Rica has popped up some places, now there's what's called Soltara, I believe is the name. And that's kind of one of the preeminent places that you can go to do a retreat and so forth. I happen to have a private shaman that I do.
So what's the benefits? What do you think the benefits were out of that? And how was the experience?
Intense.
How long was it? The process, or was it a day thing?
Yeah, it's a long ride, right? I mean, so if you drink it, right, in that, it's about, I don't know, people have different, it depends on how much, and people have somewhat different experiences, but, it's many hours, 6-8 hours of experience in that. And what did I get out of it? Well, a lot of people, this wasn't really my experience. For me, but maybe because I had done a lot of work on it to some degree around ego. But so a lot of people will talk about experiencing, there's many different experiences that people have in this, right? And most would fall under the heading of profound. Some are, man, spirit talk to me, right? They call it Mother Aya, right? Mother Ayahuasca. I I got the messages, I got the download, I get it, you know, we're all connected, we're all one, right? There is no you, there is no me. Like, it's part of the collective and how it comes together. And you can have these like beautiful experiences of that. You can have some people experience what would be referred to as ego death, which is probably one of the most terrifying experiences you can imagine, because you think that you're dying, but it's that ego that's trying to hold on and control everything, what I would call the child. Yeah, and so that can be like, if that's what is your issue. So what they say is that Mother Aya knows where to go. The medicine knows where to go. It knows what you need.
Yeah.
It will take you right to what you need. So the three of us could go do it together and have three very different experiences. And I was this in my childhood, and I don't know, I just saw these, you know, lizards were talking to me and telling me, you know what I mean? Like, it can be kind of crazy. And I'll share some of mine with you, but that ego death is like, really, for a lot of people, it's like that was the most terrifying thing, but it's what they needed, right? Because they were stuck in that ego that was making those, you know, running the program back to that subconscious and where it was, you know, what happened
with those type of people, the day after that experience, do they really change? You see the change in them, or it's also a slow process of...
Yeah, so after you do some ceremonies, they'll do it up, you know, maybe 3 days in a row, right? So do it, then do it again, then do it again, right? Oh. So 3. Some people, you know, some do, you know, you're just, it's realistically, if you think about it, it's peeling the onion of the personality, right? So it kind of depends, right?
So day 1, it could be the ego. Day 2, it could be something else.
Generally, I don't think, well, I can't say generally. Everybody has a different experience. But from I mean, I've studied it a lot as well too, right? Because like most things, I studied it a lot before I did it, right? Mm-hmm. And for way longer than I expected to. I wanted to do it for a long time, and I was waiting for kind of the right opportunity to present it. Many years ago, I almost went to Peru to do it. I wanted to, but that's a trek, right? I mean, it's difficult to be like, man, how am I going to be out of pocket for 10 days and do this and do that? And how do you even find it, you know, or whatever it is? And then, you know, as divine intervention may be, it found me, and
you're attracted.
Correct. And you know, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, right? You know, and so the shaman, you know, I got a private shaman, and I had a 2 shaman. I had a man and a woman, and it was just me, and it was profound, man. It really was quite an experience for me, and there's something you call purging. Have you heard that, right? So that's kind of part of the process, and can be, and it's purging it can happen multiple ways, but you know, a lot of people, the common things that people talk about are like throwing up a lot, right? It's called purging, and it's releasing of that energy. Some people shit themselves, right? You know, and there's a lot of people then that go in fear. Is like, especially if you do it in like, sometimes they'll do it in like, you know, in kind of a group, right? So there's a shaman overseeing a bunch of people, you know, in that environment. People are like, man, I don't want to shit myself in front of like all these people or whatever. I haven't had that end, but I have purged like ungodly amounts. You know, I don't even. It's not even really feasible to understand how much I actually purged. So it was interesting stuff. I mean, look, this gets way the hell out there, and I'll kind of jump to something. And I'm sure that any skeptic type mind or whatever, all I can tell you is my experience. Whatever, take it for what you want. And you know, this may sound far-fetched. It sounds funny even to say it, but it was real to me as could be. I experienced my birth.
Really?
I felt it. I'll tell you something really interesting first, right? So I'm kind of like in this, you know, I'm in my whole thing, right? And I'm really kind of with the woman, you know, shaman that I was kind of engaging with there. And she asked me, she said, are you okay? How do you feel, right? And I thought she was kind of referring around the I can't remember, you have a bucket, you know? I mean, I literally filled a bucket this big.
Oh, shit.
Throwing up, right? And so I had different episodes of stuff around it, but in that, I remember she asked me at one point, she said, how do you feel? And I'm thinking that I can't remember if I had already purged or not. I presume maybe I had some, right? And I'm thinking she's asking me about that, right? And I'm like, I'm okay, I'm good, you know. I'm just kind of in this really cool setting, and you know, candlelight, and you know, some interesting music and all these things going. And I'm like, I'm okay. She's like, yeah, you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm good. She said, how's your stomach, right? So this is my connection to, is it about my purging? I'm like, well, I think it's pretty good. She's like, no pain? And I was like, no, I don't have any pain. She's like, oh, okay. I'm just kind of sitting there in this, you know, in this setting. And all of a sudden, I just remember my next thing was I said, no pain, but I just had the craziest fucking experience of my life. And she said, you know, do you want to share it? And I said, yeah, I just witnessed my birth. Wow. And she said, oh my God, that's what I was feeling. She said, I was feeling this, something wrong with the stomach, right? And I thought it was your stomach. So again, you can take this and be like, man, who's this kook talking this? Who's this guy? Who's this kook talking about this?
Chris talking about this stuff.
She goes, oh my God, give me your hand. We're kind of like she's kind of like laying down. She goes, I could feel it as that was happening. She said, give me your hand. And she put it here. She said, I can feel contractions in my uterus right now.
She was feeling it.
Yeah, we were right next to each other, right? So she felt that, and she said, and I was like, holy shit. So I'll tell you exactly what I experienced, right? I'm an open book, man. It is what it is.
I love this stuff.
So this is what I witnessed. Maybe I should back up. So before you go into this, right? Before you go into an experience like this, to do an ayahuasca journey, it's, first of all, you go through something called La Dieta. It's a diet that you do for a couple weeks that's involved to prepare your body for it, right? Vegetarian-based diet and limiting fats and different things that are going to affect stuff. So I had to follow this diet for a couple weeks, and so that's the physical preparation. The what I would call the mental emotional preparation is you want to go into the journey with an intention.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So what is it? So the way I've shared it to other people is, hey, you get a chance to go talk to God, you should probably know what you want to ask, right? Like you might get a chance today to ask a question to God. Don't be like, I don't know, right? So I mean, you really need to go in with an intention. So, so my intention, sharing it, was I wanted to give, feel, which I would say is receive, and be love. That was it. That was my whole thing. I just wanted to be centered to love, right? That is my most important thing that I want to take away. So I go through this now, fast forward back into it. I witnessed my birth, right? And this feeling, this love. I witnessed my birth. And so it was really weird because it was almost like watching yourself like in a movie or something. I can't even say myself because I was a baby, right? I mean, it was a baby being born. And so I felt it from two perspectives at the same time. I felt the process, like my,
you coming out,
my being born, right? But I also felt it or witnessed it in this event
as a third party,
like from above, watching down, right? And and then I felt being put on my mom's chest, right? And immediately just felt this overwhelmment of love at a level that I can't describe, right? You can imagine, right? To some degree at least, right? And I felt that, and then almost as intense as that came on, it went from that, like that, to fear, the greatest fear that there was. It was my mother's.
Fear, your mother's fear.
It wasn't mine.
Fear for you.
Yeah, and I talked to her about that. I used this to, I had a profound experience regarding around my dad as well. So this was, again, around, I guess, my healing. And you talk about these things that are in your subconscious before you could imagine. You think I could remember the day I was born? Right? So how deep is this? There's not, so what, if you believe what I'm saying, right? Or whatever. This was my experience. It is what it is. So in that, I talked with my mom about it, and I shared that with her. And she was, she was in tears, like hearing this whole thing. And she said, oh my God, that was the range of emotions. She said, I remember, so the fear, when I felt the fear, I remember these words associated with it, which was, so love, profound love, to fear, and I heard now what the fuck do I do? Maybe not fuck, but now what do I do, right?
So fear of, okay, now he's alive, now I have him, now how do I...
Yeah. My mom...
How do I deal with this?
Correct. My mom turned 21, you know, this is 1968. My mom turned 21 July 16th, and I was born 3 weeks later. Right? Vietnam War.
It was
it's all these things going on at that time.
A lot of pressure for her.
Correct. And I think that's, I mean, I can't imagine that, you know, that's an uncommon feeling for, you know, for a mother to have, which is like this profound love, but also this fear of, am I prepared?
Yeah.
How do I know how to take care of this child? Right? You know, around that. So that was a pretty profound thing, but what was more profound, was, and you asked this, you're like, so does somebody who has this experience the next day, do they just come out and like completely change? You go through what they refer to as an integration process, right? Which is now, how do I take all these things and integrate that, right, into kind of this new consciousness, right? Of where I am, and hopefully my evolution of consciousness. So I think there's two parts. There's that. I remember driving home, which was a few-hour drive, and just in total silence. I drove for like, you know, 3 hours in total silence. I didn't want anything. It was just, and I can remember the term that I used to describe how I felt was just incredibly gentle. Just kind of, you know, so not weak, not just like almost this kind of like just this gentle, like, wow, almost like a newborn, right? Like almost heart open, just wow. And I remember for days I would just hold my heart all the time.
You weren't feeling anything. You weren't feeling good, bad. You weren't feeling love or hate.
I was certainly feeling tired, I can tell you that much.
Were you hungry from throwing up?
I was a little bit. Man, I don't know.
Were you sore from the throwing up?
I really wasn't, man. I should have been. I can't tell you. I mean, it went on for a long, long time. But so, you know, it's kind of part of, I guess, this healing process. And so so I'll tell you something that she said to me. She said, oh my, because I shared what my intention was. You speak your intention into the medicine before you drink it.
Yeah.
By the way, like, it's notorious for being...
Is this like peyote too? Similar?
I suppose you could say perhaps some form of cousin to it, you know, because I know that the American Indians will... you know, they used that as part of a religious ceremony to connect really with spirit and all these other kinds of things. So I would say it shares that. I've actually never done peyote, but I am interested, you know. I'm not like into drugs, like to party or anything like that, but it's something that helps me to, you know, I don't know, see things from a new vantage point and, you know, uncover and that kind of stuff. Like from a productive standpoint, that interests me. I'm no longer, and I've partied in my life, you know, with the best of them, but I have no interest at this point of being in this kind of like inebriated, like, whoa, fucked up state or whatever, you know. It's kind of like, I want to explore, right? You know, I mean, it's like exploring space, but it's inner space into your own self. But so around that, real quick, is that, so you speak your intention in, and I shared my intention straight up with, oh, I'm sorry. I know what I was going to tell you is that it's ayahuasca is notorious for the taste. Let's just say it's not good.
It's not good.
Ooh, I was like, oh, that's why people purge. Jeez, this is.
How much of it was it?
Like a cup, you know.
And that's it. That's all you take.
Well, I did a second round, but I did a second round later. But so yeah, you did a cup, and
this is not doing anything. Let me get.
No, well, it wasn't. I'll tell you something. No, I got it all down. I was like, okay, all right. And then, so it was, you know, took you to the place that I'm in at this. But I remember, so I found this interesting. So I shared with them, you know, hey, I'm here basically to, you know, receive, be, and feel love. Right? Nice. That was kind of my mantra of what it was.
That's kind of like your motto in general.
Well, yeah. Well, I took it in there, right? You know, I took it in there, and I sure as hell brought it out.
That's
you know,
who you are.
At a higher level. Yeah, that's part of my journey, right? And kind of where I am. And so within that, I remember the shaman. She said to me, actually, this was a little bit. This was before that point. She connected something with my grandmother, and she brought it up. And my grandmother, she's the one that taught me love. She's the one that taught me.
Yeah.
That feeling, emotion of love, and that's where I got it from. No disrespect to my parents, I didn't really get it from them, right? You know, they were doing the best they could.
Or at least you didn't get it as much as you were, because they were young.
I'm not saying they didn't love me,
right.
But the the teaching of love
came from the ground. Yeah.
correct, you know, and she taught me everything. I mean, she got me into like psycho-cybernetics and all that kind of shit, like Maxwell Maltz at a very young age, all these kinds of things. And it's just like, she set my journey, if you will, right? Taught me what love was, set my journey. So the female shaman brings her up, and you're like, you know, I didn't say anything. She didn't know anything about me. Nothing. She didn't know a single thing about me. Talks about I feel your grandmother's presence. I was like, well, that's love. She's the one that taught me love. And she's like, yeah, okay, good. You know, so I was like, well, this going right so far. Then the thing with Mom happened and like I said. But I remember somewhere in there, she says to me, she goes, oh my God, I get it. You're not here to heal you. And I was like, I'm not? She said, no, you're here to heal your parents. Wow. So I've taken all this, and it's been, you know, pretty profound, and how I brought that into my relationship with each of my parents, and I shared it with them. And my mom was scared that I did it. My dad was great about it, but he's not the type that would normally be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a wise journey to go do. You know what I mean? Right. And he was like, really, like, I wasn't nervous telling him, but almost the little kid is like, yeah, Dad, I did this fucking drug, you know what I mean, or whatever. Yeah, sure. And he was like, wow. And but it's really been this, it's been an amazing gateway for us of he and my healing together.
Has it improved because of it?
Yeah, a lot. Been really profound. And then what's interesting is, so I went through that, and I remember, so the talked about doing a second one, so I had done the one, and so the male shaman that was there, at some point he turns and he says, Spirit just told me, and by the way, there was a previous time, I won't bore you, but where he said something about Spirit just told me something, and I was like, holy shit, it's exactly what I was just thinking. It was like uncanny, because we were like not talking, and I had this thought, and he goes, Spirit just told me, and I was like, yeah. It was literally what I was thinking at that moment, right? So now he says to me, this is later, he says, Spirit just told me Chris needs some more. And I was like, okay. And he said, would you like another cup? And I said, sure. You know, like, I'm in it, right?
But are you conscious there at that point? Yeah. You fully or you're like,
I would call it enhanced conscious.
What would that be like in alcohol terms? Like 5 drinks in? What are we talking here?
Well,
like, you know what I mean?
I totally get the scale you're going down. Is it
like I just woke up in the morning type guy?
This is my resistance to saying alcohol, because to me, what alcohol does is it turns down your feeling, right? It anesthetizes, right? So you feel less.
The opposite?
Yeah.
Right.
So it would be 5 drinks in if it was turning you up instead of turning you down.
Would it be like you're taking
nitrous or something?
Yeah, or something like you're chilling that way.
Why do you presume I've done nitrous? Maybe like a really euphoric weed high to where you're like, oh man, I kind of get, you know what I mean? Like,
okay, but
it's not a great comparison. Yeah. Oh, totally. Look, if the house caught, if the building caught on fire,
you would have walked up.
Okay, I can get out of here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was not like incapacitated or anything. Not like.
The reason I'm asking is because you said, oh, he said this, and that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
But maybe you were so out of it that you actually
said
it. That's what I was
thinking.
Right? Yeah. You probably just said it yourself, and you're not even that conscious enough to realize that you said that.
I'll tell you exactly. So now I'll share exactly what it was, and it's not like it's interesting or profound. We were sitting there in 3, like we were in 3, and they do it with you, right? The shaman do it with you, so they're in the same.
They drink too?
Yeah. Wow. Because they're there to take you and guide you through it, right? So we're all in the same state together. And she and I remember they told me, they're like, he gets affected really fast. Like it hits him and he's through the roof like this. And she says, and I get hit really, really slow. And I was like, great. I want to be right in the middle so that I'm always, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I can be behind him and have you behind me. You know what I mean? So great. Maybe by the time that I'm playing it Zeptune, he's coming back around like, okay, cool, like I'm safe or whatever you want to call it, right? So we're sitting there, the 3 of us, and he's kind of like, man, it was crazy. He was making like some wild noises and shit, and it sounded like, at the time, I was kind of, and he's like, oh yeah, and he's like, oh, can you see it and feel it and shit like that? I was like, oh man, I remember. And I remember this one line came to me, and it was that love is the current, see? And I was like, love is the currency. Love is the currency. Oh, love is the currency. right? I mean, it was just this profound thing that I brought, you know, and it was one of those ones when you're in it, you're like, man, I just saw the forest through the trees at that point, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, I got it, you know, that was a big one. But I remember, so she and I are talking. We're not like, I'm not shot out of the cannon yet, you know what I mean? Like, it's still kind of like, you know, I'm maybe feeling it come along. I've done some, you know, recreational drugs in the past where, you know,
you're what, 30%?
That's fairly good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Coming on a little bit, like, okay, you know, what is this, right? You know, and one of the things, I'm sorry, this is an important part, I think, is one of the things that, and this is why I studied so much going in, is I want to be prepared for, you know, whatever I could do. Had my intention, all these kinds of things, followed everything. But one of the things that I'd kind of heard and learned is that whatever you're experiencing, good or bad, especially bad, lean into it. Don't push away.
To get rid of it.
Well, yeah,
face
through
it. Face
correct,
it.
right? So like if you're, so the example is if you're experiencing ego death, right, and you're in something like that, and you start going, oh my God, I want it to fucking end right now, and you know, like, no, I can't face it. Oh, you're fucked, because it's about to get 10 times worse at that point, right? You know the saying, what we resist persists, right? You know what I mean? And so I remember, no matter what, like every purge, head in the bucket, and anything uncomfortable, any of that kind of stuff, you know, have that nanosecond of a thought, of course, human nature, I want this to end, right? You know, for like this, or this is uncomfortable or whatever. Sure. I would just get into the mantra in my head, I'm like, lean into it, right into it. Whatever it is, I'm coming right into it. Like, just, you know, bring it. And so I kind of had that mindset. So where you're talking about like this 30%, I'm like, oh, I got some stuff coming on, you know, but I like lean into it, like, right? Always embrace the whole thing. Never like, oh, this is given. So anyways, I remember we're sitting there and we're talking. She's talking. And I had shared some things because I thought, you know, I wanted her to be aware. I wanted both of them to be aware of kind of like what my journey was about, right? You know, for me, in case it aided in it, right? You know, and like I said, the things she shared with me, like grandmother and, you know, all this kind of stuff, pardon me, you know, it was enhancing it. So I was having a dialogue with her. If I'm at 30%, he's at 80%, right? You know, and he's connected into whatever this world is. You know, she and I are talking, and I'm feeling it. So to your 30%, maybe I'm like starting to percolate up from that, right? And I'm like, kind of like, ooh, I think I feel this kind of like, ooh, coming on like waves, right? And she's talking, and I'm trying, I don't want to be disrespectful, right? You know, she's sharing some things back with me about kind of like her life, right? And I'm like, okay, you know, but I'm getting the wave, and that's when he says, Spirit just told me Chris needs silence. And I went, that was exactly what I was thinking, but I didn't want to be disrespectful to her sharing something with me, right? Like, part of my being love is also being able to absorb and be part of this. So I'm like trying to be present to her, but I'm also trying to get in the rocket ship that's starting to go, you know?
I think he needed silence, and
maybe, but you know what?
He used you. He was like, shut up. I'm at 85% here.
Yeah. You know, very well could be.
And you ruined it.
Everybody just shut the fuck up.
That's funny. But honestly, it really, as funny as that is, it really was exactly what I was thinking. Because I was kind of like, oh, I think I'm starting to blast off.
Right.
And, you know, I got to check out of this conversation. Right. You know, that was literally the thought when he said that, right? So
this is too much.
Yeah. But when he said that,
she's nagging me now.
It kind of. I didn't feel that way at all. But it was just kind of like I didn't want to be distracted. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going in now.
Like you say, this was happening, and you were like, I want to experience this, and she's kind of distracting me.
But for both of us, you know, we were taking much longer to come on. So in that, you're just kind of having the conversation. You know, you're kind of having just good conversation. It was productive. There was nothing negative. But so then off of that. So then when he says, Spirit just told me Chris needs more, I was like, fuck yeah, man, Spirit was right last time, man. So they're like, dude, would you like another, you know, cup? And I was like, okay. So I got up, and there's kind of like this altar, and I'm like kind of by the altar, and he brings me another cup, and he brings it to me, I take it, I'm like, I get to my intention, and I go, and I'm, you know, drinking it, and I'm like, okay, I bring it down, and she, the female shaman, she reaches out to take the cup from me, right? And so I said I didn't finish it. She goes, I know, Spirit told me you wouldn't, and I should take it. And I was like, But I mean, I drank almost all of the second cup, right? There was just a little bit, and I was like, okay, I couldn't finish it, and I was going to. And so I was like, okay, I'm listening on that one too, right? And so then she took it from me.
He's 3 for 3 now.
Yeah, well, this was her now. She said
right,
this time.
Spirit's still 3
Spirit's
for 3.
3 for 3, exactly. I think Spirit's 100 for 100, but yeah, you're exactly right. So, but I mean, I share that because it reveals to me where I'm like, man, I'm going, you know, like you said, it's like 3 for 3, you know, flow, whatever it says, wherever it takes me. And I remember like, I remember being in a space, and it was actually before the second cup. It was actually, I think, even before maybe the mom experience, birth experience. And I was I was kind of like laying back, with my eyes closed. And I think this is where they were checking on me, like to see how I was coming into it. And they're like, how do you feel? Anything, you know? And I was like, I feel good. I said, but man, I'm having the craziest visions. And my eyes were closed. And they're like, what is it? And I'm like, a lot of people talk about this, and mine wasn't super profound, but sacred geometry. Do you know what that is? So it almost looks like a kaleidoscope.
Okay.
Right? You know what a kaleidoscope looks
Sure.
like, and how those
shapes.
Yeah, so my eyes are closed,
Right.
but it's real seeing these colors and these shapes and this. It's called sacred geometry, and
okay.
it's just kind of spinning. But that's my eyes closed and open, seeing the same shit.
Now, are you sitting? Are you laying? Are you on the floor?
I was in kind of a semi-prone position. I was on the floor with like a pillow, kind of somewhat propped up a little bit. So
up against the wall or something?
Yeah, up against like it wasn't a wall. It was like it was kind of like a day bed kind of thing.
Okay. So,
Chris, would this be similar to like an acid trip, hypothetically? Not that I don't know if you took an acid trip. I'm just saying.
I have.
he's assuming all this shit. I mean,
Yeah, Jesus.
This is what we love about you, though, man. Robert's gonna go next for
Yeah.
the acid trip.
I have.
Is it similar, or is it like?
I would say that it is. I'm not really experiencing acid. I've done psilocybin. I've done that. This was.
We put him in the hot seat. Like,
oh, shit.
Yeah, right.
Jesus Christ.
This is nothing compared to that. Go be born.
Experience that shit.
Yeah.
I don't want to see that shit.
Go purge in a bucket for 8 hours, man. This is nothing. Hot seat. Whew. It's the hot bucket that's the tough one. No, I tried to love all of it, actually. But I would say, put it in a funny way, perhaps. It's more like doing acid with God.
Okay, interesting.
It's a different experience.
Right.
Yeah,
It's more about like when I, you know, I think I had 2 experiences with acid, and they were, you know, whatever they were. They were a different time in my life, and it was a different experience, and a different desire, and a different outcome, and all these kinds of other things. It was probably those I would probably chalk up more as recreational at the time.
Sure.
Just probably more than anything due to my maturity of what it was. You know, I was much younger. This was more productive, right? This was about a tool.
Yeah, but this was an intention. That was just the wrong reasons. You know.
Yeah, this was more like, man, I'd like to. I've heard a lot about this. I'd like to go experience that and see, you know, and watch the moon dance on the across the water and be like, holy shit, look at that. You know what I mean?
I've heard of stories
Yeah.
like the tree talking. And,
Yeah.
Like take this, go out, just walk, you
Yeah.
know, and they take you outside, and the tree
Yeah.
moved and spoke.
You know, I think they're all
like
like a morphing of reality, kind of. You know what I mean? And so, but I would just come in with a different intention, as we talked about, right? You know what I mean? Anyway, so around that one, I remember. I don't know. This is the part that stands out that makes me laugh about the second cup. I remember at some point they said to me, the shaman. He says to me, he goes, "Man, you're strong." And I was like, what does that mean? And he goes, you took a lot. And I went, is that good or bad? And they were like, it just is. And I was like, well, my fear was, I'm like, well, am I resisting it? And he's like, no, but you took a lot. And then I think it was after that I had the mom experience, as I shared with you. Some of it is, you know, is so long that.
So what did it mean reference to? Took a lot of what?
The ayahuasca.
Oh.
Took a lot of the medicine.
Ah, got it.
Right, having that second full cup of it, or almost, you know, finishing it. So, anyways, it was really good from that. So now I gotta, it goes into something else. So that was kind of cool and crazy. Then there's this thing called rapé. And rapé is this, it's like a snuff type tobacco that's grown in the jungle, right?
Yeah.
In like in Peru and in the rainforest. And so then you do this, and this is common, a lot of people do this with ayahuasca, and it's like this snuff. And they take it and it goes in this like really long pipe, right? It's like this long pipe, and it's like carved out of bone and shit like that.
Yeah.
And he did it first, then she did it, then I did it. And he did it, and he was like, I'm like watching him, I'm like, man, I don't know what planet we were on before, but he is on a whole different one at this point. Like I was like, holy shit. And then she did it, and she had the same thing, and then she actually had to leave because she started purging pretty badly, or extreme, whatever. So she left, and it was now just he and I. And so he's like, you want to do this? I was like, yeah. And he's, he had all these different rapés. And so he's asking me, he's like, which one do you want to do? This, you know, he had like 8 of them, and I could choose. And I was like, well, and he's describing a couple, and this does this, and this does that. And I was like, yeah, I want that one. And then I was like, no. I want whatever spirit tells me I should have, right? Like, why am I calling it out? Right. Who am I? Like, you give me what I need. Yeah. And then he talked about this one that was, oh God, I know I forgot the name of it, but it's the tallest tree, and it was something about it, the vantage point, and it's there to, it sees everything and helps to see things through. And I was like, I want that one. That's the one I want. He's like, all right. So he takes this snuff, and it's like candlelight. You can really see. He's pouring it in his palm. And he's taking it, and he's like, does that look like a bud? Right? I'm like, I don't know, I can't even see what it is. I have no idea what I'm about to do, right? And he puts it in the thing, and this is how they do it. So you take this, like this long pipe, like I said, that's carved from this bone, and you take the long end of it, and you stick it up your nose. And he takes the other end, and he goes, I remember him saying, just, what did he say? I think, like, oh, I know what it was. She kind of instructed me when she did it, because I just mimicked what she did, right? And she's like, tell me, I'll tell you right before, when I say go, don't fucking wait, because I'm gonna like kind of hold my breath as I do it, so don't make me wait, you know, when you blow it. And so he's like, okay. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna do it like she did it, right? When I give you the okay, just go. He goes, okay. So you get that thing, and it's like way up there in your nose, and you're holding it, and I go, okay. And he goes, like that, and it goes, this is what I remember. It goes, whoop, like right up into my head, and I remember I just went, I couldn't fucking breathe. I couldn't breathe. Everything went black. I've never been more scared of anything in my entire life. Wow. It was, I remember I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe, and he was next to me, and I was like, I just grabbed him, and I grabbed his arm, and I was like, and I was just sitting there like fucking trying to figure it out, and I remember I had big old fucking water, right, you know, and I finally got to the point, I was like, and it's like, I grabbed it, and I'm like trying to drink it, and it's just like pouring down my throat, and I was like, I couldn't see anything, right, everything went black, and I just kind of turned, and I laid on the ground in like a fetal position, but not on my side. Like, what do they call that? Child's pose in yoga, right? So like my forehead's on the ground, right? Like I'm kind of on all fours in a way, but like my forehead's on the ground. Right. And I was just sitting like that, and I was like, fuck, and everything was just black. And I was like, voice goes off, lean into it, right? Like
he's fucking crazy.
Leaning to what? My head is on the ground.
I literally leaned right down into it, right? So yeah, but I mean, like emotionally, like
sure,
right. Let it go, because I can assure you, relax, when you think you're dying and you can't breathe and you can't see and everything, eyes open, eyes closed, everything is black, just black, and there was nothing else, and I was kind of like in this state, whatever, and. I remember just kind of sitting there, and then I started purging off of that one like crazy. And we started talking, and what was so interesting. So if I kind of wrap it up from here, but if you
want to experience it,
if you say you don't want to,
No, what an experience.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I think I'm tired already. I'm like, I'm feeling all this.
Yeah, and so it's emotional, right? There's a lot. And so what was really interesting to me is kind of the bifurcation of the experience, right? As I shared with you, the first half was all this stuff with my mom, right? My grandma taught me love, my birth, feeling love, and then feeling fear. And so obviously that's something, as we talked about before, this first, being in pure theta, wave, and like the monkey see, monkey do. What am I experiencing? Am I experiencing nothing but fear from my mother, right? So now that's like almost the first, it's the second impression that I get as this new, human, right? Going through. So it's like, wow. So all this stuff with my mom, which becomes kind of healing for some of that. Like I said, I talked with her. The half with the second half, right, which also included the rapé, was all stuff with like my dad. But it was really weird because the visions were a little different than that. But he was talking about, he being the shaman, just he and I now for like the next 3 hours, and he keeps talking about like presence of dad and this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh yeah. And then I remember him saying something to me, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but something like, I'm feeling you at like 6 years old or something like that, right? It was these kind of experiences, and I would just kind of like lean into it, right? And I'd purge back into that kind of, forehead space, like feeling it. Like even when I'm purging, I'm like, okay, stay in it, lean in it, and there's not much coming, like you get to a point where there's not much coming out, but you're still kind of doing it. Even dry heaves are purging, right? And it's as I've studied it and everything else, it's a release of trapped energy is what it is, right?
Yeah.
That energy, from all those kinds of things. So I go through that, and I remember at some point getting to a place where I'm like, man, I have got to go to the bathroom, like pee, right? So
I was going to ask you, how are you peeing?
Yeah, I haven't. I probably drank, I brought a gallon. I probably had almost
dehydration.
Yeah. Well, throwing up that much, but I had to pee, right? So I remember at some point going, okay, I think I'm okay enough to get up and make it to pee, right? Because every time I kind of like get up,
you're going through this experience.
Yeah, and so I remember getting up and I walked to where the bathroom was, and I peed, and I remember there was a mirror in there, and I was like, don't look in the fucking mirror, just don't. It's, you know what I mean? Like,
not right now. Yeah,
I don't need to see my physical body, right? Like that's not going to do me any good. No, I didn't. It didn't interest me. But it wasn't like, it's just like, like my body had almost nothing to do. This meat suit had no bearing on what I was experiencing, right? I was in a whole nother realm of spirit, right? What I referred to before when we were talking about being in the state of non-physical energy, right? My body was still my vehicle taking me to go, go pee, but it was not. It really was fairly inconsequential at that point, any of what that was, right? It was really about this other stuff. So I peed. I remember walking back to the space, and he was just standing there, like, he wanted to make sure I was okay. And I remember he kind of like put his arms out. And I remember just grabbing him, and we just stood there and hugged for probably, I don't know, it felt like a long time. It probably was a couple minutes, which, it's a pretty long time. And I remember just like hugging like so deep, and I was like, oh my God, this is all releasing pain of experience that from my childhood, with my dad and what that stuff was. And, there was nothing bad with my dad, but it was just, he was gone all the time, right? He was gone on business and so forth. And so it was just
whatever you were lacking from him at the time.
I think,
you were resentful in a way, maybe
that's interesting.
Well,
for me, it was
because what happens is when we lack that, we think we got to get strong at it, right?
Yeah.
But deep down inside our core, there's still something that bothers us, and we got to let it go.
Just want to hug.
Yeah.
Right? You just want love. Which my whole journey was getting to love, right? Peeling all that to what you talked about, right? Peeling whatever this meat suit is that I made to protect that inner child, right? And what bodybuilding can sometimes be, or certainly the genesis, certainly was for me, was the way that I controlled my pain, first of all.
A strong body, it makes you strong.
Protected, right? It won't hurt me. I don't need that, But really it's just a facade. Around that. So to me, I wanted to peel all that and get into what it was. And so, anyways, I think that probably tells you the story. It's a pretty fucking profound, experience.
How long did the rapé?
Oh, the rapé.
The rapé? How did that, how long did that last? From the moment you get hit, right, and you feel everything goes black, to you come back around and feel okay?
Man, it's hard to put my finger on that. I remember it. I have no idea. I had a watch on at the time. I couldn't see the time. I never wanted to look and see. I didn't care. But it's really hard to have an idea on time. Like, I remember thinking, I think we started at 5 o'clock, 5 p.m.
That last portion of it?
No. The beginning, the very first
I'm
start.
talking about.
But so I'm trying to get to that,
Okay.
right? So we started like the journey at like the first ayahuasca cup at 5 p.m. So I have no fucking idea. It's probably, I would guess maybe it was 10 p.m. when we did rapé, right? 5 hours in, something like that, 5-6 hours.
And
in.
that lasted.
And then I do remember. So I went through that for a while. She ended up coming back. And we all just kind of chilled for a while as I was trying to get like my bearings. Like once I finally stopped purging and everything, and then you're just kind of in this space of almost like this kind of like spent recovery. But I can remember a certain period of time, maybe a couple. I'd been like, okay, so I've gone from that kind of like child's pose. Now I'm kind of like back to that kind of semi-prone, position, kind of laying there and like trying to get together. And then you'd be like, okay, I think I'm okay. And then, oh, nope, and like, boom, you're back up in the bucket again, purging, right? So that happened a couple times. And then I remember, I think they kind of fell asleep, and I was never really asleep, but I was kind of in that space, right? That kind of in-between space. I would guess it was maybe, I remember he got up and started to make a little bit of food to eat, right? And it's like, you probably need something. And he brought a pipe to smoke something. And he's like, do you want to take a little smoke of this? And I was like, fuck. No, I can't, right? And there was CBD in it,
What's next, man?
Yeah.
Here's some opium. Like, let's lay down into opium now.
No. But it was really designed to kind of help me, like, kind of come back, right? And there was CBD, and I remember he said, would it be okay if I rubbed something on your feet? And I was like, this cream, right? And it was like a CBD cream. He said, I think it'll help with, through this nausea that we're almost, because I was on the backside of it, right? Almost out. And so I was like, whatever you want, man, go ahead, And so he rubbed this cream on my feet, and I was like, okay. And I just laid there for a while, and they made some food, and he's like, you want something? And I remember he had frozen grapes, and I took one, and I just kept it in my mouth for like, it seemed like an hour, right? I couldn't even. I was like, oh man,
Thank God you didn't choke on that.
Yeah. And so I had that, and then I think I went to bed. I remember she was like, do you think you're okay? Do you feel like going and laying down? They had a bed for me. And I was like, yeah, I think so. I think I'm all right. So she went and cleaned out the bucket and put it next to the bed for me just in case. And I think that was about 3 a.m., 3 or 4 a.m.
So you stayed there that night?
I stayed there. Yeah. There was no way I was going anywhere. And then I didn't feel like I really ever... Oh, this is interesting. I was sweating profusely. I can remember being over my bucket and just having sweat like dripping in the bucket, right? Yet I was kind of cold. I had like a sweater on and shit too. And I remember getting in bed and was like all wrapped up and hot and cold and all this kind of stuff and was laying there. I don't think I really ever slept, but I was just sitting there like pondering and kind of integrating, staring at that point. And then in the morning, like 9 a.m., we had breakfast.
Do you gotta pay him, or how does that work?
You make a contribution to the tribe.
Oh, I got you.
Right, for the ayahuasca. It's getting hard to get ayahuasca because it's being overfarmed and all this kind of stuff.
It's illegal or illegal to do this, or is it?
I
know you touched a little bit on it, but
I'm not a legal scholar, but the way that I understand it, right, is it's legal. It's illegal.
Okay.
Unless used in a religious ceremony.
That's what you said earlier, right?
Correct.
So
I'll definitely tell you that was a religious ceremony.
Okay, because I was going to say, what makes something in a religious?
Yeah.
Like, there's a Bible there, or because?
Oh shit, that's what
it's like.
Do you want to click it off?
It's like drugs.
You just hit the side. Sorry.
It's like drugs.
Yeah.
If the FDA says it's okay under prescription, it's fine, right? But it's illegal.
Well, I think,
how they use it.
I don't know if peyote is the right example, but I think peyote is allowed for American Indians to use as part, like on their on their lands as part of their historical religious experiences, right? So I think it's very same type thing from that. But so then we had breakfast in the morning.
Wonderful.
And you were fine?
And we sat and we talked and we just started kind of talking through like all the integrations of things, began that process. And then ultimately, like I said, I ended up, driving home.
But you were fine.
You
were.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I felt like super gentle, and and then it took a while. I can remember walking around like all the time, like just my hand on my chest all the time. I still do it to this day, but I almost had to, and I don't know if I was protecting it, or connecting with it. It was something between the two. And my
both.
My love rock
that
I showed you. I had that with me there the whole time.
Oh, so you already had that?
I brought it with me. And so now it's been supercharged through the stellosphere or wherever the heck I was.
What are you, kind of like a fitness hippie, you think, kind of to a certain degree?
I might be becoming one, man. I don't know.
I used to say I'm a gypsy snob. Because
that's funny.
I always travel.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit. At the same time, you always want to go to good restaurants and good hotels, I say.
I do thrive on, I love paradox. Right, which I would say a gypsy snob certainly,
right, exactly.
Falls into that. Perhaps a fitness. How about an executive fitness hippie is pretty paradoxical.
It's pretty close.
Yeah,
he's a crazy bastard. I love this about it. You're almost like a spiritual leader type guy. You know what I'm saying? Like you could have been have your own. But
don't be taking me to Waco or some shit like that, man.
No, in a good way.
Jonestown massacre. Right?
No, not in a bad way, but like in a good way. You know what I'm saying? Like
I like to think of that. I mean, I would say that is part of that's the juncture of the journey at this point. That's what Crush One Coaching is about, right? I mean, so we've talked about this before, but to me, I bring people into this based through fitness, health, and wellness, right? So to me, I kind of see, speaking in metaphors as I like, and we talked cards a little bit before as compared to bodybuilding in terms of racing to bodybuilding as to how those technologies find their way into kind of daily, right? Mainstream. So for me, the way I kind of see it is that fitness is using the car metaphor, right? So the fitness is kind of like the vehicle itself, right? Because that's the body, which is the vehicle to kind of take us around. Yeah. To me, the health is kind of would be analogous to maybe the power plant of the vehicle, right?
Fuel?
Yeah. Well, the fuel is what runs it, but like what's the power plant? So you might call it an engine, and all those kinds of things around it, right? Perhaps transmission, what that part is, because that's kind of the mechanism that's making it go. And to me, the wellness is really kind of the integration of. We talked about this before, but to me, this is my view of how the lens on how I see it. But the wellness is the integration of the interpersonal communication of your psychology, right? That self-voice and those things we talked about, like how to get that to kind of be my friend and work with I want to be one with that voice, as opposed to that voice is like undermining me, and that's coming from subconscious, like you're not deserving or good enough or any of those kinds of things, which is really ego voice, which is, the scared child being fear, right, in that. And so to me, that wellness becomes that. But what I would contend is that the car, the vehicle, and the power plant, are only as good as its ability to transfer that energy to the ground, right? So like the analogy in that or metaphor would be a car at the drag strip, right? That has 1,000 horsepower, and when you punch it, it just sits there and spins the wheels, and a Prius smokes it in the race, right? Because it's got all this power, but the power is useless because it can't get to the ground and do anything. And to me, the wellness, that voice and integrating that in and kind of, that part of it is really what gets that power to the ground, right? Because, all the body in the world and even all the biology in the world, if you're not integrated with that voice that's helping you use that to your highest effectively, it's perfect word, is that effectiveness. To me, what is that would be kind of like the transmission of
that too much power is great, but it's just spinning. It actually hurts you. It works against you.
And how many people's minds are just spinning their wheels and not getting them anywhere? So it's about getting that out, from here into traction, which I would call the heart, right?
You're spiritual, but it's not like you're preaching. Like, say,
who am I to preach, man? I don't know. I'm just giving you my view, right?
It's not from a biblical standpoint, right? It's not from a true, like a religion.
Because he's more in tune with his inner side, and that's what he's saying. So the spiritual.
Yeah, that's my journey, right? That's what the journey is. Sorry about that. Thank you. That's what the journey is, right? And so I'm just sharing where I am in life. I'm just trying to share what my journey is.
And you're so open-minded about stuff, man.
Well, I mean,
That's when you lose
my ego has nothing to hide.
Right.
Yeah.
That's where we go. When you have ego, you're
and
trying
not
to
so
put this
judgmental,
facade.
right?
He's
You're
like,
not a judger like a lot of dudes. You really, I mean, it's,
because he's realized, he's not perfect. No one is.
Yeah.
You know, and why put this facade of someone you're. Hey, we all commit mistakes, and we're all human. You know, at the end of the day.
But we also, you know, to that part of that journey as well is that I still have to use my awareness and mindfulness as to when the ego wants to bump up into something and go, you know, like, you know, fear, really? You know, you asked me what I feared before, right? You know, that's that fear of my ego, because I fear my ego being in control, because that is what fear is. That's this kind of like, you know, circular, you know, firing squad, really, you know what I mean? That kind of.
Have you looked into Stoicism? You know, Stoic?
Yeah, I haven't really studied it a ton. I mean, I'm aware of what it is, and I think I like the foundational principles of. To me, that's somewhat of being a thermostat and not a thermometer,
yeah,
right?
That's
you know,
exactly what it is.
Around that, what always, dare I say, turned me off, or what I felt limiting about Stoicism, was maybe this is part of the journey of Stoicism, becoming truly Stoic and not practicing, right? You know, once you kind of, I mean, it's always a practice. But what I always kind of saw Stoicism as almost is like an artificial version of holding myself down so as to not get too excited over, right? Because Stoicism is kind of even keel, right?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah.
You would, I mean, it's kind of a thread to it, is that I'm going to be in this bandwidth as opposed to this bandwidth.
Correct.
Right? And so what my resistance to Stoicism was, maybe is to some degree, is around that, is I don't want to tamp down. I almost feel like, and this wouldn't be somebody who is, and maybe you can educate me further on this, but somebody who's truly, I won't say mastered, because I would contend there's no such thing as mastery to anything, right? The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know jack shit, right?
Absolutely.
All I can do is share with you where I am in this place of my journey, which is why I'm open,
Right.
because I might have a totally different perspective 10 years from now, because I sure as fuck have a different perspective today than I did 10 years ago, right? But so in Stoicism, to me, is what I wanted to, my resistance to it was not simply trying to almost like lower my expectations on something, my excitement on something, right? And as a means of trying to head off disappointment, right? Because the higher you get your quote unquote hopes up or excitement or whatever like that, right? The higher then, and so I would say probably having no expectation, right?
Disappointment.
Correct. You know, that high, oh, it didn't happen the way I wanted it to, you know, and then that's that low, and it's like, well, that seems, and I would probably contend that somebody who's truly at peace with that Stoic vibe, right, is not holding it back. They're allowing it, but it's just kind of a better version of being a thermostat than a thermometer, of just going, cool, like I am not, whether this goes the way I want it to, I am not my circumstances.
Yeah.
You get where I'm going with it? I'm not being
and
very articulate, but
I'm not a fan of 100% being a Stoic.
Yeah.
But using Stoicism to a certain level.
Yeah.
Especially in business.
Yeah. Well, don't let your highs get too high, your lows get too low. It's kind of in a way but not artificially by controlling it and going like, don't get excited, this deal might like fail. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's the antithesis of it.
Yeah, I don't think it's to that point.
I agree.
I think it's more of
not authentically, at least.
You plan out or try the worst and realize I'm still okay. I survived. So if this doesn't go the way I want, I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of facing fear.
So I'll take it in a different route to that same spot, which is, first of all, I don't know. Get real comfortable with I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this deal gonna close?
Story of my
I
life.
don't know.
Yeah.
Is this girl gonna call me back? I don't know. You know, is this gonna work out the way I want it to?
Yeah.
So I think if we're living a life that says, when my circumstances go the way that I want them to, then I'll be happy, right? That's back to the thermometer thing. And when I can tell, just put a pin in it right there. I certainly used to live this way, and I think a lot of people are stuck in this space, which is when this, then that, right? So like, when I make the money, when I get the job, when I get the house, when I get in shape, when this future event occurs, then I'll be happy, right? But now you're just waiting to respond to those external events to sometime in the future to allow yourself to be happy. Whereas I would say bridging that, which is, I'm just going to be happy in love right now to where I am. Yet I still hold the creative fire and desire to go achieve these different things.
Yes. Enjoy the journey.
Yeah. It sounds so cliche that it's easy to just get kind of caught up in it, but that really is, and to me, that's what gets into this kind of present moment versus future moment, right? You know, it's
but there's where ego gets involved, right?
Correct.
So, and I said Stoicism, and I brought that up because there's a book by Ryan Holiday called "Ego is Your Enemy."
Okay.
Yeah. And it works right against you.
Yeah.
So Stoicism is getting rid of that ego.
Yeah.
Because when you say, no, I can do this with all this confidence, this is what's going to happen, and it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah.
Then you just you fall flat on your face.
Yeah.
And Stoicism tries to prevent that.
Yeah.
It makes you kind of take a back seat and say, okay, what are the possible outcomes if I do it this way or do it that way, and if it doesn't happen, what's the worst that could happen to me? This, okay, and I'm okay with that.
Where I would go with that, which is almost the same thing, is that if I truly have that inner peace of love to myself, which is acceptance of whatever, right? You know, which is I'm like, no matter what, if I have it or I don't have it, any of those kinds of things, like that, those are my external circumstances. I am just loving at peace at this spot right here. Then, irrespective of how that goes, that's not what's going to change me here. Right, I'm not waiting for this to go up.
No, but I'm not. But I'm not talking about your emotional feeling.
Yeah.
I'm talking about. That's why I said at the beginning. Even business. Okay, my goal is for this venture to go this way.
Of course.
And if I do it like this, what's the outcome?
Correct.
Forget about how if it happens or not. How would I feel?
Yeah,
It's not about what I feel. It's what's the best route for me to take this venture. Should I partner up with Rich or should I partner up with Chris? And what's the worst that could happen if I choose one or the other, and if it doesn't go my way, what's my pivot? How do I pivot and make it happen? Or
well, all I would say to that, I agree completely. To me, that's simply strategy, right?
But with the Stoicism, we're Stoic.
Well, I think the Stoic is almost like an inner peace, if you will, right? Think of it as inner peace in terms, not to sound like esoteric, but like, I'm going to work with, my plan is to work with Rich using your metaphor. Maybe my backup plan is to work with Chris, whatever that is. Like I've got my pivot ability and all that kind of stuff, but it's not going to change you
it doesn't.
in that process.
No, it has nothing to do with my feeling, my process, my happiness.
But all right, I dig it.
We got to wrap this down. The computer's going to die.
Yeah.
We got to wrap it up here.
We'll do another one.